Hey Jay, how are you?
Hey, good. How you been?
Doing good. Long time no see.
Yeah, like a few days.
I see you're in the dry fire dungeon.
Yes, it's a good place to hang out. Sounds good. My internet is right here. This is
Yeah,
an upgrade from what I used to have, so it's great.
can't beat that. It's on par too, as I'm sure we'll nerd out about shooting, training, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But first off, thanks for taking the time, jumping on, and talking with me. I know there's going to be a lot of people that look at this and want to learn from you, especially, and see how you do things. But kind of prepared some stuff, and I'd love to really talk to you about like Area 7. Obviously, that's a pretty big deal. Is that your first area win so
Uh
far?
y- yeah, it is. I haven't shot that many area matches. Yeah, really that many matches in general, but yeah, that was my first area win.
Well, congratulations. It's a big deal.
Thank thank you.
And obviously, I'd love to get into nationals as well. I feel like naturally we should talk about Area 7 first since it was like a couple days ago.
Yeah.
And then, kind of dive deep into training after that and see what you're doing and see how your takes are on certain things. And yeah, just have people kind of get to know your style a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all stuff on my mind all the time. I think about shooting and training and competition like nonstop. It's always going. And so when I get to talk to anybody about it, always super excited. So yeah, let's go for it.
All
Let's
right.
this will be fun.
Yeah, so we'll start with Area 7. Obviously, I'm assuming you knew you were going to shoot that match since the beginning of the year.
Uh,
Unless I'm wrong.
yeah, I mean sometimes yeah, Area 7 for the past couple of years have been a little tricky for me to work out just time wise because it's usually right after nationals or close to. And so I'm not always 100% sure until like a week before, and that was the same this year. So I didn't know for sure until a week before, but I was signed up. So,
Okay.
but yeah, I'm glad I went. The stages were really fun. And and our guy Kyle designed them all. So I don't know. I felt like I should go for that reason too. Um, and there was a window of time at home here where it worked out. So
That's awesome. Yeah, Kyle does a great job. I mean, he's very passionate about it and he cares a lot, which is exactly what we want as far as people supporting the sport.
yeah.
Um, but so how? So I kind of want to start out with like preparation, right? Obviously, you sign up for a major. You have goals of winning it. I hope, or I assume. How early do you start your major match prep? Does your major match prep just start and never stop? So how early do you kind of start prepping?
Yeah, so this year's unique in a way where, there's the World Championships coming up in September. So a lot of my matches this year were in and are in preparation for that match. And
Mhm.
so I'll schedule kind of the year around what makes sense for the biggest match that I'm going to shoot. And I want to have matches like I don't like one a month, it would be great like for major matches, one a month would be great, and then be a local sprinkled in there. And so like I try to make that happen. Um, but as far as like lead up for a major, I mean, this one was just kind of on the way to other matches, and so coming off of nationals, that I had some specific things I wanted to test at this match just to make sure that I'm doing stuff correctly, um,
Mhm.
and kind of use that as a lead up. Uh, and I was able to do that, kind of figure some stuff out, have more direction on where to go with training and stuff. Um, but yeah, your question more was specifically about, you know, training up for like a big match. Is that
Right.
correct?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's definitely a lot of people like we hear from everyone. Like from one end of the spectrum of you see the person posting online 2 days before the match saying, I'm getting my live fire in to prep for the Area 7. That's obviously one extreme. And then you have, the other extreme where I'm using Area 7 to prep for a world championship. There's different levels to prep that a lot of people I learn aren't aware of. Like, how does, someone at the top of their game or wanting to compete at the highest level prep and use certain matches to get to their, really their best of their ability versus someone that's, just, prepping for a local match? Like, what does your process look like?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so I'm gonna take it pretty like fundamentally here. I need my gear to be 100%. And so, I will run through and, you know, check my ammo. I make my ammo, so I'm running that through the chrono of excessively making sure it's good. Um, Making sure that my gear runs 100%. Like I don't want to be taking this match is a kind of an exception because I took my practice gun to this match because my match gun is good to go for Worlds, so I'm not going to shoot that in Worlds. So I took my practice gun to this match, which may be a little risky because it was kind of super dirty and has had a lot of rounds on it. But this match I kind of put to the side for there. But generally, like gear all set to run. I know it's going to work 100%. And then it gets to the training side where I want to just have that feeling of being tuned up, and that kind of comes with just experience of doing this a lot, where you can go out and wherever you look, the dot will show up there, and I want that. And then even a little further than that, I want it so that live fire is very normal for me. So, when I pull the trigger, the gun goes bang, and I'm not surprised by that. And so that was a lot of the prep that I was doing for this match. It happened to be also for, World Championships later in the year. So I've been shooting a lot. Pretty much every day I'll go out and shoot. Um, and, same thing with dry fire. I'm dry firing every day. So everything's feeling pretty normal. But I think a big change from this match, and we'll talk about it when we get to nationals, was a lot more prep on making sure that I am tuned up as far as my mental rehearsal goes, is my like my visualization and that kind of skill. Because I don't shoot a lot of matches, I don't get a ton of practice doing that. And so I, spent time watching other people's match footage from, any match, whatever it is. And I will learn those stages, and then I will mentally rehearse them as if I was going to shoot them, and I'll like force myself to do that, and really put in the mental effort to get where I'm comfortable with the stage. So then when I get to Air 7 and I have to memorize, within a few minutes, like I'm first shooter or whatever, I'm always first shooter on the first stage because of my name. So I just know that. So I want to be able to memorize a stage, run it through in my mind, and have everything just the way that I want it. And I want that to feel, normal. I don't want that to feel like a stretch for myself. So
Yeah.
that's a lot of the prep stuff that I'll do. Um, and then when I get to the match, then it's just I don't have to try as hard at the match, and I can just kind of run my program and do my thing there.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I want to talk about like your split of training. Before that, you touched on like visualization and how to like mentally prepare for a match or stages. Um, with shooting, well, first I'll ask like how many matches do you think you're shooting like a month or like a quarter? Are you saying like you're probably shooting a match a weekend, or you like one match a month? Like, what's your kind of frequency look like?
I mean, I would love to do that. It's probably close to one match a month.
Okay.
Just in general. I mean, I didn't shoot last year. I didn't shoot any locals, and I shot like four major matches. It's not very many, and so that's why I say like I'm not able to get as much of that match training in, and so I have to simulate that as best I can. But yeah, this year's been a little bit more. I was able to shoot a few matches and a few locals just in prep. So I think this year it's going to average about once a month. One or two matches a month, yeah.
Perfect. So on that topic, like especially like I hear this a bunch from like cops, for example, right? Is like I want to get good, but I can only shoot 4 matches a year or like 5 matches a year, right?
Perfect,
And obviously
perfect.
you can get good at that, right? But that visualization part, stage planning part, how do you kind of practice that when you're not shooting matches? Or do you? Or do you just isolate that time and really focus on it when you're at a match? Or is that something you practice somehow, either in your dry fire dungeon, or are you setting up full field courses on your range? Like, what's that kind of look like for you?
Yeah, all of it. So, the most basic part is like all in my mind. That's where I'll start with it. So if I like, I'll use a couple of Mason's videos as an example. Like I'll go back and for whatever match he has, he got hat cam for the Caribbean Open or whatever, and so I'll go through and learn stages that he has shot, and then rehearse those stages, like I said, and run through those. Uh, and then after I learn a stage, then I'll kind of do a match run in my mind. I'll go through and there'll be errors. It'll be like maybe I didn't execute like the connection between this position and this one how I wanted. And then I'll leave it. I'll drop it just like a match that end and I'll go to the next stage. And that kind of stuff just keeps me sharp there. And this is also because what else do I have to think about if I'm not dry firing or whatever? Um, so
Especially up
that's
there where you are.
yeah, yeah. I mean, like my work is relatively simple. I go out, I milk goats, I move them around, pick up some fence, or during the season where, just work is slightly mindless, not always. And so I can think about stuff. So that's kind of the first part. And then, yeah, dry fire stages, making things really complicated, more complicated than I'll see at a match. Where I'm, skipping over target, transitioning past stuff, and I'll set up a field course in dry fire essentially with multiple positions, a lot of rounds, and then I'll give myself a walkthrough, and then I'll give myself 3 to 5 minutes to actually prepare to shoot the stage without looking at it necessarily. Uh,
Mhm.
and then I'll go up and I'll do a dry run on the whole thing. And that's the other way of like testing. Did my prep actually work? And then you can see it in dry fire play out. And then yeah, same thing with live fire. I have a range by my house, so I can set up a big stage. I can, do a walkthrough, rehearse it in my mind, and then I can run it. Um, and then that's kind of the real test because you really, really get to see how things sort out when the gun goes off and when things are actually happening full speed and you have like a moving target and you got a bunch of things happening, um, and I'll test it there. Uh,
So
but
you're
that's not
essentially you're essentially having mental matches against yourself.
and
And
I
then
and
when you're not doing that, you're setting up your own quote unquote private match, either if it's in your basement, running a stage a bunch of different times. But it sounds like you just treat a lot of your training days as match day. Like you just go into it with the mindset of I'm walking up to this like it's the stage at Worlds, and
yeah
making it harder than you think it's going to be. So that way you have to practice that mental rehearsal at a high level.
yeah and there's a few things with this like where it's so difficult to simulate real matches because of like I can do the best I can to put pressure on myself when I'm training or when I'm shooting a stage, but it's not real. It doesn't like I can't quite get there. It helped like I can do little tricks. Like I did shoot a match against myself against it was my first run versus my second run, and I shot like 35 stages for like a week or whatever. Um, or maybe it was 2 weeks, but and for the first couple of stages, I felt it. I felt it on my first run and my second run, like that feeling that you get at a major match, where your heart rate's going and you're feeling nervous and all that stuff. And I could feel it there. And then that feeling started to fade. And so like there's tricks that you can do to kind of play uh, to to get yourself to feel the actual pressure, but it's really hard um, other than going to a match. So then, once a month you do get to go to a match and test it. Uh, and then you learn from that even more on how you can prepare in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you're practicing your winning process, like being able to visualize, being able to like compete at your highest level, even if it's honestly competing against yourself is the hardest competition you can do. It's really trying to find ways to add the pressure that like a real match simulates. Obviously, you got someone coming for you, and you got to beat them. So I can definitely see that for sure. As far as like your live fire training for nationals outside of like stage stuff, unless it's all stage stuff, I'm not
No,
sure.
yeah.
Um, do you like to like in your training? Are you running a lot of drills? Or are you running like a lot of like isolating certain skills? Like, what's that kind of look like? Say a month leading up or 3 months leading up for nationals.
Yeah, I mean, this is all, it all depends on what I think that I need to be working on at the moment. Sometimes I'll spend, like a couple days in a row where I only shoot one-handed. Um, and and that'll be it. And maybe I'll run stages one-handed or drills one-handed. And then other times it'll be one target and I'll go out and shoot and really just work on just accuracy stuff out at distance or just drawing. Like today I was out just doing two at 25, which is just draw and shoot two shots at two alphas at 25 and then holster and do it again. Uh, and so it depends. When I'm leading up to a match that I care about, I mean, I've gone right up to a match that I care about and been really, really hard on speed and really pushing myself and not minding much about accuracy. And then there's been other times where I'll be where I feel like I need to refocus myself and kind of get into like shooting good points and behaving the way that I want to at a match. Um, and so a lot of it now is based off of just what I feel I need to be doing. Uh, and that's kind of tricky to talk about because it's not as straightforward as like here are the rules, because there aren't really any. It's like know yourself and know what you need to be uh, focusing on.
Yeah, you got to self-analyze. I mean, that's one big thing. Like I've noticed after talking to like a lot of top shooters is just laying out a bunch of drills and mindlessly shooting them is not the way to get better. Like skill isolation and focusing on what like you personally need work on and being able to like actually realize like say you take area 7, I'm sure you looked at a lot of the footage, you looked at a lot of the practice score competitor app stats, you figured out from your videos and all that like what you need to work on, what your weaknesses were, and then you isolate those in your training, whether it's live fire, dry fire, whatever, and like really isolate those skills. What I found separates a lot of like top competitors training versus like the average dude going to the range, once every other month to run whatever drill they think they want to run. That's fun. Um, and also, I've noticed like the style of training that a lot of top competitors do is boring. Like as much as like a lot of people want to do like what's cool and what's like fun. Like you said, all I did today was draw and shoot two at 25 yards, and I'm sure you didn't do that for 100 rounds. I'm sure you did it for quite a while.
Oh yeah,
But
it was like, should I keep doing this? And I was like, oh, yeah, I need to keep doing this.
yeah.
Um, and because I'm seeing something that I like in that, I'm figuring out what my grip needs to be like so that when I come back and dry fire tomorrow morning, then I can like I know where I need to be with my draw and training the things that you need to train as opposed to the things that you want to train. That's big.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, being able to, and that's something I want to kind of segue in is being able to like assess where your weaknesses are. Like being able to like shoot a drone, assess what you did wrong is one thing, but being like especially as a competitor, being able to take a match, assess where you lost time or where you dropped points or maybe where you let someone else beat you on a stage, like being able to assess those weaknesses and then micro train them into practice, I think is a total different skill than just realizing, why you messed up a drill in the moment. So I love to talk about like, I'm assuming you've already looked at Area 7, made some mental notes on what things you want to work on. Like, what are some things that you're going to be working on forward to really improve yourself after Area 7?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things. Like the one specific thing that I'm going to be taking note of in training is this idea of like if I'm coming into a position or if I'm shooting on the move on the way into a position, the place that I want to start shooting on the move and the place where I need to actually start to put the brakes on so that I start shooting at this specific point are two different locations. And so like if I pick a spot on the ground that I'm gonna, start shooting my way into a position, then if I just look to there, run to that spot, and then try and settle myself enough and settle the dot down enough to start shooting on the way in, then I'm too late. I've already landed in position because my dot hasn't settled enough. So I'm I need to pick a spot for back if I want to start shooting at a certain location. So that's something that I'm going to set up in training where like I'll have a big movement, I'll shoot something, I'll have a large movement, probably forward right now to start. Um, and I'll have two locations picked. One where I want to start shooting at a move, and then one where I'm going to run all out to. Uh,
Hmm.
and then those two, then once I figure that out, once I figure that skill out and figure out like what that distance needs to be, then it's going to be putting that in context and like outside of the isolation drill. And
Yeah, that makes a lot of
that's where
sense.
things like so I'll build a skill like that or whatever it is. There's a lot of different things that I need to work on, but um, I will train that skill up, and then I need to test it in context. So that means testing it in a place where I haven't already just run it, 10 times. And so that means putting it in a stage of some kind and
Hmm.
making sure that I can do the rehearsal correct in my mind to make sure that it happens. Um, and and then that's the real test. And if it doesn't, fine, maybe it's a one-off, or maybe I need to go back and work on it in isolation again. Um,
Yeah, I mean that sounds a lot like Tom Castro talks about the crash. It sounds like very very familiar or similar to what you're talking about. But for example, yeah, like there are some stages that Kyle made that screw you, Kyle, but your entry target was like a 35-yard partial or a 35-yard tuck, and you have to run hard to that spot, be able to crash, settle your sight, and shoot that coming in.
yeah,
And if your
yeah,
dot wasn't settled and if you weren't coming into position moving, you were either going to sacrifice your entry time because you're just going to run to a spot, stop, and shoot, or you're going to shoot horrible points because the gun's not settled while you're moving in. So it's
exactly.
definitely a super valuable skill to have. I mean, especially like you watch any of the top shooters, their feet are always moving throughout a stage for probably 90% of the stage. And being able to shoot like coming in, like you said, and like change your pace, coming from like a full hard sprint to being able to put on the brakes, settle your dot, and shoot coming into position is like such an invaluable skill that can always be worked on, right? Because like I'm sure you have zero issue doing that out to I'm just gonna say something random, like 20 yards, right, or 15 yards. But if you throw like a head box at 40, it's much like there's always room to grow in some of these skills that a lot of people overlook.
Yeah, and making those decisions at a match as well, like, well, can this target, should this target be shot while entering, or should, yeah, like you're saying, like, should I crash into there? Because, if you slowly and smoothly enter into a position, then you just wasted a bunch of time when you weren't even going to shoot anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's there's a there's a bunch of decisions that need to be made there as well. And making those decisions when you're under pressure to match is a whole different item. Uh, and so there's so many elements to this where that's the benefit of going to matches because you kind of expose who you actually are, and then you can reevaluate what training is. It's like I I like to think of it like matches are like cold water. Like you can't hide who you are in cold water. Like you just gasp and it's cold. And
Yeah,
like you see no matter who you can hide outside of the cold water, but as soon as you go in, you are exposed. You're
right,
fully exposed. The same thing with matches. And it not you know the higher level the match, the more exposed you are. So
right.
nationals, you're very exposed because those that's the highest level that we have in the U.S. Um, and and that shows you who you are. It shows everyone who you are. Um,
Scores are
but
public.
yeah, the scores are public. You are exposed there, and that's why we go to those high
Yeah,
level matches. Um, and so the lessons there are more valuable than they are in your training. Like you may have something that you do in your training all the time, probably is important to address, but y the true test is to test it at a really high level to see what happens. And I think the higher, the better you get, the more important that becomes.
I totally agree. I mean, this, I'm sure you saw the post, or maybe you didn't. This, I forget who made it, but someone asked the question like, should instructors shoot like major matches? And I think it's yes. Like, if you're going to teach people a life-saving skill, you should absolutely be willing to put yourself out there to shoot against the best.
Yep.
Um, and a local match is great, right? Like you can compete, and sometimes there's people that are either whatever reason there is don't want to compete, and a local match is their first in. But like you said, you cannot hide the higher competition you go against. Because going against at a state level match when there may only be one or two top level shooters versus something like nationals where all the heat in the country is going to be there, and you're actually going to see where you rank up, and you only get one shot at it.
Yeah.
Kind of want to ask you that question, like, how do you think, like, for the people that are instructing, like, do you think it should be a requirement for instructors to shoot major level matches?
I don't know. This is funny for me because I don't teach people at all. I don't really want to. And I've taken a few classes and I've taken classes from people who like have competed and compete at a really high level. And and yeah, I want to see that. Like I want to know like if just selfishly, I want to I want to train with people who are fresh about that feeling because that feeling is unlike anything, at the highest level like that uh major match kind of pressure those I don't know, people call it many different things, but yes, that that would be important for me. Um, maybe that's not required for everyone. I don't know. But if yeah, if you're I don't know. I like the idea of that because of how valuable it is for me as much as it makes me grow as a shooter, that's important. Like it's
Yeah,
that is the most critical piece.
yeah, 100%. And it also shows you too, like, is the stuff you're teaching work? I'm sure you go on the internet and see someone talking about some random skill, and you're like, what are you talking about? Like, this is not how you do these things. Or maybe it is, but there is a way that is much better that you are glossing over. And I
Yeah.
guarantee if you shot against somebody that, is worth their weight in what they do, you would know real quick, when they're shooting 60% at a major match.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean,
but
people like to say lots of words, uh, and
for
words,
sure.
whatever. Um,
Um,
I mean,
but
we're saying words right now, but
Yeah, it's all fun. To kind of segue back to, you talked a lot about like planning, right? Like when you're going into matches, planning like, is this a target I want to do this on? Like, is this more of a risk target? Like, we walked, some of the stages at Area 7 together and kind of talked about how we wanted to attack each stage. And I kind of noticed like our strategies were very different. Like you were, you walked up to one stage, and you're like, I think I'm going to do this and start here. And I'm looking around, I'm like, I'm on the opposite side of this thing. Or like, I'm
yeah.
in the top corner of this stage and he's starting in the middle. Like when you walk up to a stage, what kind of goes through your head? Like, how do you like to formulate your stage plans?
Well, like I mean, for me, the big check is like I have to find out first before I walk on the stage or start air gunning or anything like that. So I have to check myself a lot with that before I go and start like you know air gunning targets. I need to know where the start position is. I have to know how many rounds there are. Um, and and that seems like super obvious, but I mean, I've done it so many times where I just walk onto a stage and I stick my hands out in front of my face and I start like pointing my air gun at targets. And then it's like, oh wait, the start position's over there. Okay, obviously it's different, and everything's different. So that'll be what I find out first, and then yeah, I don't have like hard rules for myself where it's like I must, start shooting as early as I can. I must, like that's not a rule that I have, because it depends. I Every stage is and should be, different. And so it's hard for me to come up with like some strategy stuff with it. I generally, you know, if there's some element on the stage that's very challenging, um, I will sometimes want to start there. Sometimes. So if there's like an activator sequence that I can draw to without moving my feet, and take care of that element, and then go somewhere else, then like I'll do that. Um, Sometimes, uh,
Right. They had
because
a couple
then
of those at Area 7. I forget the name of the stage, but the one that had the steel and then the swinger that was going through like the metal.
yeah,
I'm totally you and I are going to be the only ones that know what I'm talking about when I describe this. Did you start in the middle on that one? Because I
no, I
know
did
we walked it. We were walking it from honestly, I
left.
think you walked it from the right and I was walking it from the left.
Maybe I walked it from the right first. Yeah. I mean, like I'll walk a stage a bunch of different ways and then do whatever each day. But yeah, I mean, that would be. I think Tom posted a video. He started in the middle on that up front, and I don't think that's a bad idea. Um, I liked the idea of. I think if I did that again, I maybe would start there, but I would draw to that one way off to the right, uh,
To the
through
port.
through the port, and
Yep.
then activate, and then still back up on the swinger.
Yeah, that's what I
Um,
did.
and yeah, like I like that plan. I think on that one I started on the left, and then did it. And that the reason for that really was so that I could do a reload early, and then I could back up on the swinger and not have to reload after that. Um,
Yeah, because if you started in the middle or if you started on the left, you had to reload retreating.
yeah, basically after the activating sequence, you had to reload.
Yeah.
And so to cut that part out so that I could connect the swinger right to that low target, I wanted to do that. And I didn't want to have to jam a reload in that tight spot.
Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. So when you're walking up to a stage, round count, starting position,
yep.
is there an insanely difficult spot? Other
Yeah.
than that, it is totally random when you walk up to a
Other than
stage.
that, it's like what gives me an opportunity to connect positions together. So like if and that will determine the decisions that are a little bit more uh like, do I draw to this target or that target? Well, like which target makes it so that I can connect myself to the next position better. So if I can end sometimes like if I can end on a target that is in the direction that I'm going to be running to next, then for me that'll be better to go to that target or like to shoot that target last in an array.
Like keeping targets in front of you, basically.
Yeah, so then I can shoot that target, and then the place I'm running to is right next to that as far as where my eyes are pointing, so then I can run right there. Now that can all go out the window if I'm rewarded by, backing up on a position and facing away from where I'm going.
Hmm.
But if I'm locked in a position, then that'll be one of the things I look for. And so I'll look for connection throughout the stage. And what gives me like a really simple how can I fit the pieces together in a way that is simple in my mind so that I don't have to like fight through a lot of complicated stuff. So I'll sometimes pick a simpler stage plan because it's easy for me to memorize and run through, as opposed to maybe something that could be more efficient, but it's a little bit wacky with how efficient it is, or like it's a little bit wacky with how things connect together. Like maybe I'm backing up here, and then I have to like torque my body way around, and then I have to immediately come up on one target when I could just do the reverse and then take that one target, earlier or whatever. Um, so a lot of that stuff is it's hard to talk about without like if we're on a stage and we're looking at it together, then becomes like way
Yeah,
easier.
yeah. Well, we have the stuff in front of us. We can talk about it. We're just theorizing at this point.
Yeah,
I've asked different people this, and some people have like hard, fast rules. And that's always something like I'm sure and you've talked to people that are like, I look at a stage and I like the first thing I look at is this, and that's how I make my decision for X. Other people are like exactly what you're like. I look to see how it flows, and other than the rules that are written on the paper, I kind of go with what feels right, and I can do 10 out of 10 times.
yeah,
I'm always curious to see like how people look at stages because I know it's all different. And
yeah,
like for example, you'll go and I'm sure you look at some videos. You're like, wow, this person crushed this stage. I placed a similar time. We did it opposite ways. How did that happen, right? So
yeah, yeah. And I mean, a lot of the times too, like different people will have like if there's some items on a stage that are my strengths, like if I can take advantage of those, then I will and I should. And if I can, if there are ways for me to hide things that I don't like or that are awkward, then I will hide those. Um, and so, and by doing that, then I get more confidence on the stage, and so then it's easier for me to execute the stage plan the way that I want to because I like it. I like it for myself because it fits me.
So
Um,
that's something I really want to talk to you about because honestly, I've always heard people say like, "Oh, I want a stage plan and shoot to my strengths." And for the longest time, I was like, "That makes total sense, but what are my strengths?" Or like, how do I change my stage plan? And like, I really thought about it for a while. And
yeah.
honestly, like your strengths are whatever you want them to be and that you feel confident in, and obviously can execute well. How do you like if someone were to ask you like how can I figure out my strengths and how can I stage plan to them? Like what advice would you give them?
Well,
Or I'll rephrase it, how did you find your strengths in shooting?
this is like a you know, this is something that you get from training where you're training and maybe you train one skill for a while. Like maybe you got a really quick draw. Um, and you're like, okay, well, I can draw really fast. So then you come up to an array and it's a start anywhere stage, and everybody's starting on the left of the stage because generally that's how it goes with start anywheres. And you have a couple of options in front of you. You have like a really close target, and then you have like a far partial, and um, and then you have another close uh, target or something like that. I don't know. And you're like, well, my strength, I mean, I can draw pretty fast, so how about I just draw to the close target really quickly, and then I'll transition out to the far one, and then on with the rest of the stage, or something like that. So some of the decisions can be those, like a really simple one like that. And that can give you other options too, like where sometimes have a start in the middle stage, and there's like one target to draw and shoot, where a lot of people will like draw and run over to the right or the left, and then come back, pick up that one in the middle. And
Mhm.
if you have a really quick draw, sometimes it works out better to just to like smash that one target and then go all the way to the right, go all the way to the left.
Yeah.
Um, and then it gets into like, shooting on the move and your comfort level there, and taking steel on the move, and what kind of stuff. And a lot of this is really only like gut check stuff at the match where you can determine whether or not that's a good idea. And only
Mhm.
you can determine that
Right.
from your walkthrough. And so that's where it gets complicated.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right though when it comes with training, because when I like significantly bumped up like my training this year, I started to figure out what I was good at and what I was not so good at. Like for example, I was spending a lot of times on my entries, right?
Hmm.
And I noticed when I started to do entries in different directions or from different angles or around certain walls, I noticed what I could do like much more efficiently and what I was like struggling maybe a little bit more on at the time. And in my stage planning, I know like, okay, if I can work my stage plan to where I enter how I know I can do it at my best, I'm going to try and do that. Like, for example, like running backwards with the gun behind you, turning and shooting. Like, for me, that's very challenging. But
Yes.
if I could keep my entry in front of me so that way I could see the target coming in the wall, I could kill it. So I'm going to work my stage plan so that way I can work my entry coming in with the target in front of me rather than turning around. That's just one random example, but
It's a
I
great
think you're
example.
I think you're spot on when it if you're hearing like, oh, I everyone's saying I need to make my stage plans to my strengths. Like, what are my strengths? Get them through training, pick one skill and train it tons of different ways. See where you're good at it, see where you suck, and then those are obviously like segments of a stage. Like you said, like a fast draw. You
Yeah.
have to draw in 90% of stages. And if that's a strength for you, like you said, picking a close target that you know you can beat everyone else off the draw on is going to be beneficial to play towards your strengths. I think you hit it spot on with that. So, kind of adding on to like your strategy when you get into a stage. I've talked to a lot of people about hit factor strategy. You know, a
Yeah.
lot of people say like, all right, maybe super squad are the only people that need to worry about this. I've heard other people, all you need to understand is hit factor is time and points. Shoot alphas as fast as you can and try not to make mistakes. Where are you at? Is that something that you're looking at the scores before every stage? Is that something where you're, I've talked to say Sam Callahan, for example, he's like doing mental gymnastics in his head before the stage comes up, calculating the magic number. Like, what do you do as far as hit factor strategy, if at all?
Yeah. So over the past couple of years, I mean, I've talked to a lot of guys about it. I mean, I will occasionally host the Hit Factor podcast, and so I've intentionally brought on Mason and brought on Jacob and guys that I wanted to ask questions like this too. And yeah, for me over the past couple of years, it's been I've intentionally made myself at a match, during the match or before the match, look at scores, and look at scores from people who've shot the match and stuff, and that's to get a better idea and to kind of advance my skill as far as knowing what hit factors are going to be. And why I want to use that, I mean, like we'll use um stage 7 at area 7 as an example. That's where I started. Um and that the high hit factor on that stage was like a 5, or maybe it was like a 4.5 at the time that I looked at it.
Mm-hmm.
um and not very many of the people in the match, like doesn't matter the division, were running it, were in times that would push that much higher. And so using that as, okay, that's a lower factor stage. So uh for me, and it's all open targets, right? I think that stage was all open targets.
I think so.
It was like, all right, I should put the dot in the middle of the target and pull the trigger. And then I should also do that again.
That's great advice.
So
Honestly, if anyone's watching this and looking for great shooting advice, that is probably the best right there.
yeah, and especially, and so like I didn't, and I think this is a fine line, and it can get out of control in both directions. It depends on kind of what your personality is, where it's like, well, you tell someone to put the dot in the middle of the target and pull the trigger, then to put it there again and pull the trigger, then they're going to be like, then they're going to go way too slow. So there's like that kind of personality. And then so this is the example on the extreme where let's say that stage was like a 2 factor. It was like, okay, you probably shouldn't even drop any Charlies. But like one or two. So in my mind, it's like one or two targets, one or two Charlies on that stage, like no more. Um, and then if you get a stage that's like a 12 or 13 factor, and this is again where you have to be careful with people's personalities, and you have to know yourself on what you're tempted to do, um, is to, like what will an impact of what you tell yourself actually manifest as in the stage. So if you tell yourself to go fast, what's going to happen for
Hmm.
you? And will that make you go totally wild and throw three misses? Or will it kind of help you to refine where you're, you know, I guess where make yourself more efficient, make yourself more focused, and what is that going to do? So to kind of answer this for myself right now, it comes down to decisions that I make before I shoot the stage. So like whether or not I'm going to be taking targets on the move, or maybe being a little more static on them, and whether or not I'll accept Charlie's on partial targets. Like that's an easy one where it's like if the hit factor is pretty high, I'm very, very happy to just throw two in in the middle. Like I'll take two Charlie, why, whatever, that's fine. And uh, and so right now for me about the extent of it, like I'm not taking it much further than that. Like I am looking at the hit factors ahead of time, uh, and kind of determining whether or not, like what strategy is going to help me there. And
Like
then
you're thinking along the lines of risk management, it seems like if this is super high hit factor, I'll take a little bit more risk to gain speed. Like when I talked to
yeah,
Mason about this, he was like, he breaks it down into like segments. And sorry if I'm explaining this wrong, but he'll be
just go
like,
for it.
an example he gave was like, oh, if these targets are the entry targets here and I want to gain a second, like time is more valuable and I want to gain a second, maybe I'll just run through and drop two Charlies on this to gain the time instead of like
Yes.
really settling to get two alphas. And knowing like in his, because he's, been doing this for a very long time, he knows if I quote unquote, disrespect this target and really run past it and accept two Charlies, that will gain me a second on this stage in this position. And kind of looking at it that way. Is that kind of like what you're saying? Like,
Yeah,
as
it's
far as the hit factor changes, how much risk you're willing to take?
yeah, so that's where it gets down to like the decision making before the stage. So like if it's a pretty high hit factor stage and you have a target that's far away and it's one target, it's an open target at 25 yards, like you could come in there, if that's like in the middle of the stage, you could come in there and smash two shots at that very quickly. And maybe you get to alpha, maybe you get alpha Charlie, maybe you get two Charlie, whatever, instead of coming in there and taking your time to ensure alphas.
Hmm.
Because the time is going to be like the time is so important the higher the factor goes, um,
And I'm
that
sure you know
decisions.
this better than anyone else after today's session about
Yeah,
shooting 25-yard targets.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. And it's like what you can get away with a lot at 25. Like you can. You the risk that's there is that you shoot a Charlie. And so then it's determining, yeah, it's the risk management there on like figuring out, is that worth it or is it not? There's a question, like, is this on like blind stage that you have 4 minutes to walk through? Yeah, for sure. Like if I walk up to a stage and like stage 7, it's got like you have to run 10 yards before you can even start shooting. Oh, and it's an unloaded start. Okay, and you have to run all the way over to this side to just pick up one target. You automatically know, or like this is one of the things like I know that's going to be a lower factor. And then you look at the round count. Okay, it's not 32 rounds. It's just 23 rounds. So that means there's less points available, and it's going to be a longer time. So that you can kind of figure that stuff out right away. That's why I'm looking at scores so that I can get better at that. So then when I see the stage and I can be like, oh yeah, this I saw that this was a lower factor stage, and this is what it looks like. Then I can kind of confirm that stuff back and use it in the future.
yeah, I mean, a dead giveaway for a low hit factor stage is a lot of running with no shooting.
Yeah,
If
generally.
you're because essentially at its core, hit factor is how many points can you get per second. If
Yep.
there's nothing to shoot, in times when you have to run large distances, there is no points in that. Like it's zero hit factor. So I mean that's a great point. And looking at the scores gives you a little cheat code to see where people are at.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
so kind of to end Area 7 to go into Nationals is what were your biggest takeaways for your personal game after reviewing your footage and all that at Area 7?
Yeah, I mean, the Area 7 match for me was a very specific test, like I said before, but this was a test for myself on running my mental rehearsal correctly and in the proper volume. Um, like I got burned a bit at nationals because of poor preparation to shoot stages. Thinking that like, oh, it's fine, like I do this all the time, I don't need to prepare now. And kind of no matter my only goal for the entire match at Area 7 was just rehearse the stages the way that you intend to. Like I have to spend 3, 4, 5 minutes exclusively rehearsing the stage. I'm going to do that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and that was my test there. So then and the reason for that is so that I have like better error correction. So if I have a makeup on a piece of steel or something like that, then I can get back on my program without having that affect the rest of the stage. Uh, and so that was my only goal at the match. Um, and then that in itself allowed me to kind of see some skill areas where I can improve. And so a lot of this stuff is like I kind of mentioned before, where it's like entries on, the stuff that we see in the sport. It's like shooting targets just in general, and then running, and then entering and shooting more targets. Like that's what we do, and
Yeah.
leaving, and then leaving. Um, so these are it, and it seems a little bit kind of like, yeah, well, that's what everyone works on, but it is. I mean, this is the sport, and so I uh, am going to be training to get better at shooting fast and accurately. Um,
It's the name
and
of the game. I mean, I say it all the time, but literally, if you're shooting a gun, there's only two things that matter outside of safety, and it's how fast and accurate you can be.
yeah,
Literally, nothing else matters. They're
yeah,
the only
that's
two things that matter. And if you're not focusing on doing one of those or the combination of the other, then you're completely off track at improving. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's a great point.
yeah.
Playing to the point.
Yeah, I mean, I just for myself, I'm going to keep it simple. Like I've got specific things I'm going to set up. I mean, I'm switching my gear over to IPSC gear, so shorter mags. Have to adjust my belt a little bit, things like that. So some of that is just tuning myself up to that gear. But yeah, a lot of stuff where I'm isolating things again now in this phase. I've got a couple months before the next big match, so I'm bringing things back to basics where it's just a few targets, some movement, which I'll introduce in a few days. I'm forcing myself to stand still for a little bit, um, and simple isolated skills for a little while here before I build back in the context of what everything's to expose more things. But um,
Yeah, no, that makes sense. To get into nationals, how is like I'll kind of start at the top. Like, how is your compared to last year? How is your preparation different? Like, how did you capitalize on the things that you wanted to get better at?
yeah, so the prep this year, it was definitely different. As far as like, I think this year, no, I mean, I was shooting a similar amount leading up to it, but uh, I like this year being a world shoot year, it puts a ton of pressure on those people going to the world shoot, and I didn't realize that piece until I got there. So
What do you mean pressure? Like, I've never shot. I'll leave this out now. To date, I haven't shot a nationals yet, and I sure have not shot a world shoot yet. Like, what is that pressure like on a world shoot year going into nationals?
Well, so I don't, I mean, I only know what it is now. So, so like I've shot nationals a handful of times, and like there is more pressure there than there is anywhere. Um,
Mhm.
and so my preparation was based around feeling that same, uh, and and so I went in a little bit too relaxed, uh, as far as thinking that I had things figured out. Um, and then and then a ton of pressure hit me that I put on myself, obviously. Um, and then that exposed more of like weaknesses that I had at the match, which was like usually I'll start out and be solid and not make too many mistakes. And I started out and made some mistakes and put myself back. And then feeling that pressure, it's like, well, let me try to do something about this. And so then that little bit of like, oh, let me try and go faster. Let me try to do this stuff. Let me try and do
Dig
that.
yourself out of the hole.
Yeah, and like that for many people that does not work. You know, trying stuff that you can't do doesn't work because you can't do it. Um, and so like knowing that, especially, going into matches in the future, knowing what that can do and having some type of preparation to prepare for like when that happens, because it's going to, what's my default going to be? Well, my default isn't going to be to try harder. My default's just going to be, like this piece of stage rehearsal or visualization to get into that and get into the things that actually will help me perform better on the stage. Then that becomes the default. Um,
Focusing more on the process that brings you success rather than trying to change things to actually dig yourself out of the hole. Is just making
yeah.
sure one mistake is just one mistake and not two mistakes, and then
Yep.
three mistakes, and then so on.
Exactly.
I
Exactly.
definitely see that because I mean I'm sure you've seen it too. Like someone will have a bad stage, and that bad stage turns into two, and then before you know it, the whole day's gone. As opposed to keeping it boring, forgetting about it, and just
Yeah.
moving on. And honestly,
Yeah.
having like as a lot of athletes know, like that next play mentality of after the play is over, good or bad, let's start preparing for the next one. And for you, that that's your visualization, your mental process that you go through to
Yeah.
be able to perform the way you know you can without trying harder.
Yeah, so I mean, like a great example. So Dylan Poulin, who shot on our squad, he won limited optics at Area 7. He had a bad first stage. Like he dropped a mag on the ground, um, and uh, and watching him after that was amazing because I like you look at him and you can tell like I like that like that sucks. But then on the next stage he's it's like he's just right back into it. He's focusing exactly what he needs to focus on, and he's just gonna shoot. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and that kind of correction, even for the rest of the stage, like he got back on after he sorted things out, got back on plan, and then finished the stage, and didn't allow that to snowball into even more mistakes on the same stage. And then absolutely, yeah, on to the next one with fully corrected. And that's the hardest thing to do in this game is
Mm.
to is to separate what just happened from what you need to do.
Such a
Uh,
valuable skill.
yeah,
Such a valuable skill. And even like a lot of people don't think about it, but even off the highs, if you crush a stage, like crush,
100%.
it's still time to prepare for your next one.
Yep.
Just like it is like if you, pulled a Dylan and dropped your mag, sorry, Dylan,
Sorry, Dylan.
and dropped your mag, like how he snaps back into his process. Like the same thing can happen if it's all a timing thing. Like
Yeah,
time in your process equals your good result. And if you're distracted away from that, from a great stage or a bad stage, it seems to always produce the same result.
yeah. And I mean, like at nationals for myself on day two, I shot a really good stage, and I won it for at least the squad. I won the stage, and and you got cameras there. Everybody's around. They're like, "Oh wow, that was a good run." Blah blah blah. And and then the next stage, I underprepared and forgot a target.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, I'm not blaming that on the good stage. I mean, obviously that I did not prepare enough to shoot the stage. And so you pick up penalties like that, and then you go directly from a high to like a very low, and it's then you gotta like bring yourself back. So
Yeah.
this is the kind of thing that like Dylan does so well. Just because like even if he wins a stage, like where he shot some amazing stages at Area 7.
Mm-hmm.
Uh it's just like flat. And you're like, "Dylan, like that was amazing." And he's like, "Yeah." I was like,
No
and
emotion.
but that like that so anyway, I'm going to talk to Dylan at some point about this. Probably on a podcast. Uh but this is like maintaining that level throughout is like that's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
Whether or not like that is going internally, like that skill and that ability is one of the most important things, maybe if not the most important, to having a consistent match.
Being a competitor, I think a lot of people overlook that because for some reason, a lot of people don't treat this as a sport and like that we're all athletes in this sport if we compete regularly. And the mental side of competing is a big deal. And I'm not saying like, oh, you have to have like this certain mindset or whatever, but like having a process that you stick to that keeps you locked in and focused. Because, I was talking to somebody about this, but in a lot of like other sports, right? You have your game. It's like 15-minute quarters, 12-minute quarters, whatever it is. Like you have no other choice but to stay locked in the entire time you're playing, right?
Right.
We have a very unique sport where we are only have the ability to be like physically like locked in for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and then we have what 45 minutes in
Yeah.
between. So being able to prioritize that 45 minutes in between to stay focused and locked in is such an underprivileged or underappreciated skill as like a competitor in this sport because that's where you lose matches a lot of times
Yeah.
is
And everyone is different. So like it's very hard to pace someone else's process onto yourself.
you
Um,
can't. It has to be unique. Is at least what
yeah.
I've found is like you could tell me your mental process right now, and I could go out and do it, and it means nothing to me.
Yeah, yeah, and like obviously, like if you're brand new, like some kind of process is going to be better than none. And so,
Mhm.
like maybe you like by maybe, I mean it's probably a great idea to start with something. Like ask somebody who's really good at your club, like what do you do? Like what's your whole mental process? What do you do? And then take that and then modify as needed.
Right.
Uh, because there are certain things like whether it's personality or just defaults that you need to kind of work around. Uh, and whether that's like joking with people, having fun in between, or like if that's being serious, listening to music, um, like you got to figure that stuff out, and
Yeah.
that becomes a priority like very quickly.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think figuring out yourself too gives you like a sense of meaning with it. Like it means something. Like if you're just repeating something and doing something because somebody else does it, it doesn't maybe this doesn't make sense, but it doesn't like mean as much to you on a personal level. And to be
Oh,
truly locked in, you have to believe it. Because if
this
you're
makes
not believing it, then it's not going to happen.
yeah, it makes perfect sense, and it becomes I mean, at least for me, it's become very important to have that process be owned by myself. Like I own that for myself.
Hmm.
Uh, Not that I don't like, I won't talk about it or whatever, but it's that like, that's mine. Like I get to use that because I trust it. And it works well for me. Uh, and that ownership can like if yeah, I don't know if you're like this isn't my process, but I use it or whatever, like then there can maybe that works, but there can be a disconnect between your trust in it as well. And so,
It's hard to fake that.
yeah, like really making it your own and refining it all the time and kind of figuring out what works and keeping certain elements, maybe you keep them forever or you know, it's important that it's yours.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah, I totally agree. Back to nationals. For you, what was like the most challenging aspect of nationals? I know obviously you talked about the mental side of it, digging your or trying to not dig yourself out of a hole, if that makes sense. Staying consistent. But
yeah,
what were your biggest struggles in nationals this year?
I mean, besides that element, I mean, that was the biggest thing. I mean, like the stages themselves um were not as challenging as they were the year before. Like none of the shots were that difficult. I think there was a couple of swingers that were pretty quick. But other than that, none of the shots were unmakeable. So it really came down to like the challenging part was making sure that uh you stuck to that's not the right way to phrase it, but like that you did what you intended to do on the stage. Like that was the most challenging part where you get into it.
Execution.
Yeah, the execution where you get into a position and then you're like, oh wow, these are some close targets and they're all open. Like let me just start ripping and fighting against that and just and staying controlled, staying with the plan that you made before you shot the stage. Like that the execution part becomes the most important. And that was the most challenging for myself. Especially because of the pressure. And it wasn't just day one, it's like every single day. And then when the match is over, you're just like, whoa. Like you
Yeah,
shoot the last stage. Like this totally different experience. Like shooting Area 7, you're like the match is over. It's like, all right. Um
yeah,
and
for
you
some.
know, you finish right. Like so I think that those elements are the execution elements, especially under pressure, are always going to be so challenging.
Okay. Would you say, I don't know your exact placement. I want to say you came in sixth, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Would you say that's like what your X factor is that you need to, really gear up for next year to take the top slot?
There's a skill separation as well. So it's not just like I can execute every stage like perfectly to my ability, and at that match with those people, I can't win. Especially well, I we were speaking about Christian here. So a Christian is really really good skill
Of
wise,
course. Yes.
and really good um, with execution. So that skill gap has to be covered to win.
So I guess I'm trying to ask, what is that skill gap? Where do you, because I'm assuming you're not thinking overall you have no chance. I'm assuming there's certain skills that he has a big gap on, some that you're really close on. Like, what skills do you think that gap is, and what are you doing to get better at them?
Uh, there's so many things that I shouldn't say, but
Why
uh,
not?
so I'll keep it just right to because Christian. So like everybody is beatable. And
Of
the
course.
year before, like people can have things happen and they can be beat. And so like uh, 2024, I think Christian was sixth or something like that. I was fifth, and then Jacob was fourth. And then we had these guys from outside of the United States beat us all.
Whoever
Um,
those guys are.
whoever they are, they're really good shooters. They
All
can
right.
shoot very, very quick, very accurate. Um, and so things, anything can happen at these matches, and so it doesn't take anyone. It because all of these matches would be different if everyone shot to their exact skill level,
Of course, yeah. I
and it
mean, you
was
have to show up and compete at the level you're at, and you only get one shot in each stage.
yeah. And so to get really specific about it, with the skills, this is not just one thing, and I think that this lesson kind of translates through for everything, but it's not one skill that's missing.
Mm.
Um, it's like there's the draw, there's splits on targets, there's time between positions, there's all of that put together, like all of those little pieces can be improved on. Um, and so that's where it, it's not as simple as just saying, well, I'm just going to work on my target transitions and that's the only skill that I need to build, and then my skill level will be there. Um, because it's not how it works.
Right.
Uh, so it's a blend of both the execution, because the execution will maintain a higher level of skill throughout the entire stage, with good execution.
Because you'll be able to perform more consistently at your highest level.
Yeah, I mean, you'll see a lot, like if anybody has the competitor app, you can click on the AM data. If there's AMG data, there was at Area 7 for a few people. And you can see where you're like, oh wow, me and this person, there's a nice little chart that does this thing. And you're like, wow, I was right here with this person for the first half of the stage. And
Hmm.
then you'll see this where there's a separation. So I'm trying to do this with the lines. There's a separation in the second half of the stage. And you're like, where did that come from? It's because the execution wasn't there the entire time. Like
Hmm.
maybe something happened, maybe your grip gets weak, halfway through a stage and you're not able to shoot as quick. Maybe your attention goes after 10 seconds. Maybe you're not able to focus up and stay on and highly focused. So that's where I'm talking about, like, time can come from a lot of different places. Like maybe there is a skill gap, but you were right there for the first part of the stage.
Right. That
Uh,
makes sense. Like say a position or say a stage has three entries. I'm just using this as one skill. And you crush him on the first two, but your third one was just not there and he gained time back on you.
yeah.
Is the skill that needs work entries, or is it execution of your current skill of entries that needs work on? Is that kind of what you're saying? So that way you
Exactly.
can do your best entry three times on that stage and not fall off and make that gap happen on the last position?
Yep, exactly. Exactly. And so all of this is connected together, is what I'm
Mm.
saying. And so, for myself, I'm going to be working on all of it. Like I'm going to be working on the skills. I'm going to continue to get better there. And at the same time, I'm going to be working on the execution of those skills. Uh, so that, I get the most out of it, or I have the most to, yeah, I make the most progress everywhere. Um, like
Yeah,
so
no, that
that's
makes
that's
sense.
the goal.
Because, I mean, I think what you're saying to this is like, on this skill, I have beat X person at this once before.
Hmm.
How do I repeat that every time? I
Yeah.
have the skill, it's attainable. Now it needs to be 100% consistent. Is that kind of like what you're saying?
Yes. Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's like I need to figure out behavior is ideal for myself at matches. I need to continue to refine my mental process at matches that I care about, that I feel pressure at.
Hmm.
Um, and then doing that gives me better execution, and kind of optimizes, like I get closer to what I'm actually capable of skill wise at matches. Uh,
Yeah.
and then if I'm underneath that, always building skill, then then the overall performance rises.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, there's one thing to say, I'm going to get better at transitions, but if you have to transition 15 times in a stage, your transitions have to be consistent at your best 15 times, not just I can complete it 10 times. It's because someone will have that consistency and will come up with the time. That makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. So leading up to Worlds, I mean, I'm assuming this is the thing you have marked on your calendar as the most important match of the year.
Yeah,
Um,
and it's just like it's the Olympics of our sport. And like I'm on the US team for production optics. So I'm like representing the US, and
Congratulations.
we all want to do well. Like all of us on the team want to do the best that we can so that we can, win gold as a team. Um and and so yeah, it becomes very important. Yeah.
Yeah,
And just because of how that is, this match doesn't happen every year. Um
you have to earn that
so
spot.
Yeah, and so like again, that was like a whole process, like for the past 2 years, 3 years, to have that, on my mind of what matches I'm going to go to, and matches that I need to be trained up for, and sometimes those matches are in April, and so sometimes it snows in the
Especially
winter.
for you, doing that, prepping up for that through the winter months is it's very challenging.
Yeah, yeah. So like this has been a whole process, and it's continued now. Like now, this year the is the year where you get to you get to go there and just put together. Yeah, it's a long match. It's the longest match that a lot of us will shoot, and like that consistency of execution is rewarded even more.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
the bigger the match, it's rewarded even more.
So
So
what's your like your dry fire and live fire split like? How much are you
so
dry firing? Like, what's your frequency like? Like, how many rounds you shoot in a week? Like, what's that kind of look like for the people that have no idea what a world shoot competitor's training week looks like?
so for the past, trying to think when this kind of fully started up. So it was probably May. Yeah, I think since May or so. Um, but the dry fire was happening before that. I mean, like I've misinterpreted someone saying something about dry firing, and then I misunderstood it, and then have applied it to myself in an absurd way. So I'm like, I'm gonna dry fire every day for like 10 years, and then I'll just see where I'm at. So that's what I'm doing. So I'm dry firing every day. To that extent, like it'll ramp up and at different times. But so since May, it'll be, like I get up in the morning, I dry fire. Stepping on Legos, not every day. They're on the floor right now. I'm about to get really serious with the Legos. It's very important. Um, so I'll get up in the morning. I'll dry fire in the morning, kind of default no matter what. Uh, and then it's been daily live fire. So it'll be 6 or 7 days a week live fire. And it'll be 300 rounds a session. So it's over 1,000 rounds a week. Um, and that's going to continue through the middle of September for me, until we leave. Um,
Okay.
and that's and then so it's a dry fire session in the morning. It's a live fire session at some point during the day, and for the next 2 months there'll be a second dry fire session as well. That'll get sandwiched either before or after live fire. Maybe it'll be in the evening, like whenever it can be fit in. Uh,
Yeah. Do you find that it's better to have more frequency of training than it is like so for example like you hear a lot of people like oh I shot like 1,000 rounds once a month in one session
yeah.
versus having 150 200 round sessions multiple times a week. What do you find to be like more beneficial because like I've talked to a lot of people and say they'll have like a major round count day and they're working 50 different drills, 50 different skills. And then you talk to other people and they're like, I'm spending 200 rounds and I'm working one thing. And I'm going to do that one thing for 200 rounds 3 times this week.
Yeah.
I'm assuming I have an idea of what you're going to say, but I'd love to hear your kind of opinion on that style.
Yeah, no, I actually shoot, 40,000 rounds in one day. No.
That's the best way to get better, right? Cram study before the test.
I mean, like, yeah, it works for some people, I guess, but no, I mean, I have, even recently tried to put too many skills or too many things that I want to practice in one session. And it's too much because I don't the learning doesn't happen there for me. Uh, and so if I'm going to be working on something, even if it's a stage, like then I should just work on stages. Even if I'm going to just shoot one run and then change it and shoot another one, I shouldn't also work on uh, my left hand only bill drills and my Blake drills and distance change up and all this stuff at the same session. Um, and so yeah, I pick one or two things I'm going to do, and then I'm going to go out there and I'm going to pay attention strongly to those items. And then when I'm done, I'm done. I'm come back. I can think about those two things. I can work on them in dry fire, and that's how it goes. I'll work on a skill in dry fire. I'll work on generally a similar skill in live fire, and I'll come back and I'll modify slightly and then repeat.
I think
Um,
that's the best way of doing it. I think for skill development, but super uncommon for what people do. I think
yeah,
a lot of people dry fire a million things, and then what they work on the range is not even remotely close to what they. Because most people say if they're serious, they'll dry fire every day and shoot live fire maybe twice a month, right? And I feel like the biggest mistake, and I'm guilty of it too at times, is train a bunch of certain things in dry fire and have those very, very valuable live fire sessions that they have and have it be totally unrelated to what they've been working on all week. And I don't want to say you can learn a lot of bad habits that way without checking yourself, but it's not always the most efficient way of learning, like what you just said. Like, if you want to learn and get better at one skill, you need to dedicate time at it until it's where you need it to be, and then work on the execution of it, like what you've been talking about. Like, once you get your skills up to a certain point, now it's making sure that happens 100% of the time.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, like just recently for me, working and spending a lot of time on the mental prep side and the visualization and really figuring out what I need to do there and what my process needs to be there. Yeah, that was I was doing that when I wasn't physically training. I was doing that in my mind. I was doing that in dry fire, and I was doing that in live fire, where I would force myself to rehearse for a certain amount of time before I did a stage or whatever. But yeah, so I mean, like this applies to all the skills. Yeah, it works best for me, for a lot of people, if you tie all of your training together and then have all of it, just all of it is training. Dry fire, live fire, the mental stuff, all of it's training. And if it's all connected in a way, then you're always kind of advancing.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
and I mean,
Now,
obviously, there's things in dry fire too that you need to maintain that you're not going to work on all the time, like doing draws and stuff, doing reloads, transitions. Those are things that are important to maintain. And maybe you're not always going out and doing your draws in live fire. Like that's fine, because you have to maintain skills. Uh,
mhm.
but yeah,
Yeah. So with a training schedule that intense, how do you look at breaks? I mean, I've heard a lot of people talk about this. Like, some people I've heard, they're like, oh, I take 2 months out of every year and I don't touch a gun. There's other people that are like, I take one day off a week. It's all different, right? Avoiding injury is a legit thing. Um,
yeah,
and a lot of people overlook it, maybe because it hasn't happened to them or they don't train enough on a consistent basis. But at a certain point, when you do it for long enough and you're serious and your training is actually labor intensive work, that starts to come into play.
yeah.
How do you kind of structure breaks throughout your year?
Yeah, I mean, so I mean, I already said that I'm just going to be dry firing every day, so like that's the thing that will happen. But
It's been
uh,
committed to.
but that's not necessarily going to be like putting the belt on and all of the things. Maybe it's just kind of transferring the gun back and forth between hands, getting sight pictures, kind of stuff. Um, and so generally, like that will be what my time looks like. So it means probably not very much live fire. Um, and it during the winter, like nobody really wants to shoot when it's super cold and your hands are numb.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, especially a lot of times you cannot unless you have a
yeah,
winter range. Like there's times I go to the range in the winter and the Connex box that holds all the stuff is literally has 2 inches of ice holding it shut.
yeah. Sometimes you just can't shoot.
Yeah,
So there's a lot of that stuff. I mean, I love training, and so I always want to be doing some kind of training. But yeah, some things are not sustainable. I cannot shoot all the time because it costs money. Um, and so I have to structure that stuff based around certain pieces. But yeah, for my off season, there will be a couple of months where it's pretty light dry fire. Uh, and it's dry fire because I really want to be doing it. Um,
right. So your breaks are more like when it's off season, I'm just going to focus on keeping the gun in my hand, keeping those perishable skills maintained instead of, because I think there is like a big difference between maintaining training and like getting better training. I mean, most athletes, for like I'll keep always saying this, but like in other sports, like whether it be like cross, basketball, you name it, like when you're in the weight room or when you're training at a high level, there is maintenance training.
yeah,
Like that's a thing. And then there's training like off-season training or different part of the year like to get better. Like you're just pushing at a different level. Sounds like your off season is more of like all right, let's take a break on the body, just keep the gun in my hand and keep those perishable skills up to where they're at. Is that kind of like how you take which is not even a break, but like a break?
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like I'll let that also gives time, like if things are hurting or whatever, like that is recovery time. Um, and you mentioned like injury prevention as well. Like that, like training outside of like physical training. So like I will run so that I can be fit.
Mm.
I'll lift weights so that I can keep my hands strong, like so that I don't hurt myself while I'm shooting. Um,
It's a
I'll
big
be
deal.
I'll be like smart with my work. Like I won't do dumb things. Like I try not to. I can still do dumb things. But like I'll try to protect my hands with my work. And I work on so like it's kind of difficult sometimes. But there's a ton of stuff that I'm doing around decision making, around physical training to prevent myself from getting shooter's elbow or getting tendinopathy or whatever. Um, and that stuff can happen, like creep up on you really quick if you're
Absolutely.
not. And like I've been guilty of it, where it's like, oh well, I guess I don't need to do these exercises today, or maybe I'll slack off on it, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh, ow, my hand, my wrist hurts, my elbow hurts, whatever. And so it's like maintenance with that stuff has been huge,
I think
especially at high volume.
Yeah, I think physical training is something that is so overlooked in this because a lot of people look at this as a hobby and not a serious sport. But I think once you get to the top level and when people are really serious about it, you have to train like an athlete. And that means like getting in the gym, going for runs, keeping your body right, getting good sleep, eating right. It's stuff that's like this is such a mind sport, like such a mind. This sport is skill and mental processing,
Hmm.
and there's obviously physical ability in it, and being able to keep that up is something that is so important. And it's not something where it's like you got to be benching 400 pounds to be good at shooting kind of thing, but it's like you said, staying healthy throughout the year and being able to be athletic.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
all
so
of it's
important.
connected. Like the physical health connects directly to the mental health, and like that is the sleep is huge. Like I prioritize sleep big time. Uh, and and it's hard to do at matches, but like as far as training goes, like you can take control of stuff. Like you can decide not to uh have caffeine late in the day or whatever. Like you're in control of these things. Um, you can kind of, like there's a lot of decisions that are made that are not like they're not the things that you want to do, but they're the things that you need to do, uh, and throughout life just to make this stuff work better. Um, and
Absolutely.
and that's it's not always easy. Uh,
No. Yeah, I mean, being good at anything is anything valuable shouldn't be easy.
yeah,
If that makes sense. Like if it's valuable, like winning area matches shouldn't be easy. Like your preparation for that should be difficult. Your execution of it should be difficult. Because if it was easy, I guarantee you wouldn't be doing it. You'd
no,
probably be chasing things that are more difficult that you can challenge yourself with. But yeah, I mean, it was great getting to shoot Area 7, kind of seeing how you like to walk through stages. Um, I'll definitely be. When is World Shoot?
it is the end of September, so I think it starts on like the 22nd. And it's like it's a week long competition, so it's 5 days over 5 days or 6 days. And yeah, end of September. That is it.
Awesome. Well, I'll definitely be rooting for you there. I don't want to
Yeah,
keep it
thanks.
too late, but thank you for your time, man. I mean, I'm sure people are going to be learning a lot from you in this. I feel like we talked about a lot.
Yeah,
Everything
yeah,
from how you're training to how people are. I think something that people don't talk about enough is how people are training and treating themselves at the highest level. Like I think a lot of people talk about what drills and what what they're doing for this, but how do top level competitors go day to day in their training to execute at their level is something that I feel like is kind of voodoo. Like you don't hear a lot of people talking about how the guys at the Super Squad conduct a week of training or conduct their preparation at a high level or treat their bodies.
yeah,
Because unless you're in it, it's not as like, I don't know. People like to hear about guns. People like to hear
yeah.
about what gear you're using.
People like to hear about drills and then hear about like drama on the internet, stuff like that. Like that's more entertaining in the moment. Um, but yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, like the stuff that yeah, I don't know. It's very important stuff. And yeah, that's the stuff I want to hear about that kind of thing. Um, and so yeah, that's why. Anyway, I appreciate you having me on. I think these are cool, and doing them once a month seems manageable for you. Like it's not like you're forcing yourself to do this weekly or anything like that. Like this is good.
no. I get to talk who luckily, when people say yes, I get to talk to who I want to.
Yeah,
Like, I watch you compete or, at least hear about you compete, see what you post and all that stuff. I'm like, I want to see how Jay Beal does things. Having Brantley on next month, I want to see how Brantley does things. I want to learn from him. I've
yeah,
had Tom Castor on. Like, I want to be able to learn as much as I can and also like have other people be able to listen in and learn from you guys.
yeah,
Because there's not like I feel like a lot of people like to keep their secrets when in reality no one probably even wants to. There's just not a lot of people talking about this stuff,
yeah,
especially when like every single podcast or every single video online is either about something I could care less about or they're talking about some random gear or gun that doesn't matter like at all in the
yeah,
worst of things. So yeah, again, I appreciate you coming on, and I think this is the stuff people need to focus on as far as like their learning and being able to just talk to who I want to makes it easy.
yeah. I like it. I like it.
All right. Thank you, Jay. I appreciate it.
Good stuff. Thanks, Matt.
Yeah.